Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back. I want to start out today's podcast with thanking all of you who have taken the time to give us so many 5-star reviews on iTunes. And so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to read the top 3 from iTunes, because I think some of you guys will then find motivation to fulfill your obligation to go give us a 5-star review as well.
Indeed.
Well, it's not an obligation necessarily, but we certainly appreciate the overt show of appreciation. And believe it or not, your 5-star reviews and your comments actually make an enormous difference inside iTunes, because iTunes sees that, well, look at all these people that like the podcast, and they feel then comfortable sharing it with a lot of other potential listeners. And iTunes sharing our podcast is actually the #1 source for new listeners for us. So we certainly appreciate all of it. Julie and I do not market or advertise this podcast. It's all pretty much word of mouth and through all of you showing appreciation through giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. So Julie, why don't you just read those? Read the first one.
Yes, the first one comes from, AJ Jim 1464, best podcast for realtors. Good sound advice for established agents and new agents who want to fast track their careers. So thank you. And the next one comes from Jess Estrada, who says, this podcast is golden. This podcast should not be an option in your schedule. If you want to get the most up-to-date news about the market and real estate and learn the most innovative ways of doing things, listen to them. They are so thorough with their explanations and truly appreciate and care about their following. I DM'd them on Instagram with a question and got a response faster than you'd ever think, because I can only imagine how many people reach out to them every day. I'd suggest to literally time block Tim and Julie time into your schedule daily, and thank you so much. Thank you, Jess, for your 5-star review. We certainly appreciate you. I
have to say, Jess, and all the rest of you, I'm always amused, I have to say, when you're surprised that we actually, do what we say and which suggest all of you do, which is called Furiously Fast Lead Follow-Up. And Julie and I have interwoven it into our DNA to always do a Furiously Fast Lead Follow-Up. Same with all of our staff and our faculty and our sales team. But yes, I appreciate the kind words, Jess, and thank you for being such an enthusiastic listener. And Julie, we have another one, and I haven't read this one yet, so hopefully it's all good.
Well, it's 5 stars, so it hopefully will be.
Good start.
All right, from Dodie Rock, and Dodie writes, absolute education gold. I've been listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio for about a year and have learned so much. I went on a listing appointment Sunday night and nailed it, thanks to Tim and Julie. The sellers agreed to let me list the home, but as I was leaving, Mr. Seller said, I guess tomorrow I'll have to call our old realtor and let her know we're going to work with you. It was awkward. I should have offered to make that call for her. Tim had just mentioned that scenario on the podcast last week, but I dropped the ball and didn't offer it. The seller called me the next morning to let me know their past agent took it hard, and they just had to use her because they're such good friends. I lost the listing because I didn't act. In the past, I would have wondered what I could have done differently. Now, thanks to Tim and Julie, I immediately knew exactly what I should have done, and I will never make the same mistake twice. So thank you. Here's to the next one.
So we're going to get on to our topic for today, and it's how to choose the right real estate brokerage. Now, if you are in a real estate brokerage and you think everything is fine and dandy, use the notes from today's podcast to kind of just do a little bit of introspection, deciding whether or not you are in alignment or your brokerage is in alignment with your future. And there's never been a better time to take a hard look at your brokerage decision based on what's going on with the interest rates, the economy, and inflation, and all these other, frankly, kind of cyclical things that are happening in the United States right now and the rest of the world. But who you choose to be in alignment with, or who you choose to go through this next phase in the real estate market with, is critical to your success. Because if you're choosing a brokerage who's just getting along or getting by the skin of their teeth and aren't forward thinking and are worried about how to make their ends meet, and I'm describing basically most real estate brokerages out there, chances are, A, they're not going to be in business for much longer, or B, you're going to go down with the ship. So our strongest of suggestions is during times of change like what we're experiencing now, you have to open your mind to all possibilities.
That's it. So choosing the right real estate broker is perhaps the most important decision that every real estate agent has to make. So on today's show, and it might turn into a 2-part series, we'll see, we're going to share with you the top 10 questions to use when interviewing potential real estate brokerages. These questions are perfect for new agents and seasoned agents, that's all of you listening, who might be in need of a broker upgrade. Now, the old question was, what are you paying your real estate broker? Fees, commission splits, etc. But the new question is, what is your broker paying you? So we've compiled questions to ask when choosing a real estate brokerage and why we chose eXp Realty.
So a lot of the agents will assume that support, they don't really define what they want. It's sort of like good customer service. What the heck does that really mean? So these questions, and by the way, there ended up being more than 10. I edited this.
Of course.
The questions really are designed to, look, again, great service. Everyone does that. Well, you have fresh coffee when you walk in. There's a copier. In many real estate brokerages, that's the extent of your service. You'll put a voicemail into your broker or your office manager with some question, and because they didn't answer your question right away, you're going to lose a deal, or you guys get all the, that's, what's your expectation of what really great agent experience is at a real estate brokerage? And what we're going to do is we're going to give you these questions, and then you might decide or discover that you've been accepting a lot of complacency with your present brokerage experience, and had that complacency not been part of their system, you would have possibly made a lot more, or frankly made a lot more money helping a lot more people, selling a lot more homes. But because you're in the environment in which you're in, because you're working with people that are not really forward thinking, because you're essentially trying to make a world that is no longer interested in basically the old Blockbuster versus Netflix analogy. Frankly, I don't even think that's even the best way of thinking it. It's sort of like the way look at electric cars versus gas cars, or look at internet connection versus Starlink. So many things are moving so much faster, technologically changing wise, that a lot of agents aren't able to keep up. They're overwhelmed with having to decide, well, am I in the right situation? And then they're just settling. I'm just going to accept what this brokerage has to offer, and they're not realizing the other opportunities that are out there. So these questions are designed for new agents and for seasoned agents. And ask yourself these questions if you're saying, Tim, you're maybe emotionally crossing your arms and you're saying, Tim, my brokerage is great, I'm not going to really change brokerages. That's fine. Leave these questions floating around in your mind anyway, and it might give you some suggestions and some ideas to bring to your broker or to your office manager and how they can improve their own brokerage situation. Or if you are a broker, and I'm hoping a lot of you who are listening who are brokers and team leaders and frankly, in office managers, you're going to realize that a lot of agents' expectations of what you're going to be offering as a real estate brokerage are massively changing. And I have great news for you. It's not about commission split. It's about a hell of a lot more than just commission split. Commission split used to be like back in the 70s. That's how agents would go about making, like the 1970s before Julie and I were selling real estate. But that's when RE/MAX came online. That's when the whole 100% commission thing came online. And then there's been iterations ever since. So commission, despite what a lot of brokerages might think, is not the most important thing to agents. It's all these other things that you'll self-discover as you listen to the questions that Julie and I are about to share with you. So Julie, we can go through these relatively quick because they are they're obvious. The
Yes.
questions answer themselves. But the bottom line here is, if you want to skip ahead, all the answers to these questions, when Julie and I went, and we're going to read something to you, our actual personal experience with when we were aligning with a real estate brokerage a few years ago, why we chose the brokerage, eXp Realty, why specifically we chose them over the other companies, and frankly, why we probably waited longer than what we should have. So here are I think it's 12 questions that you should be asking yourself before choosing a real estate brokerage, or if you're at a real estate brokerage, you need to be asking these questions to make sure you're at the right place that's in alignment, the brokerage that's in alignment with the person that you want to be individually and as a professional, right? Personally and as a professional.
That's right, and these notes will be published online so you can get caught up, but if you are a note taker, now's the time to get started. Here are your questions.
Online on iTunes, online on Spotify, online on our website, timandjulieharris.com. And by the way, back to the referral or the reference to Instagram, if you want to connect with us on Instagram, it's at timandjulieharris, and we do post lots of personal stuff, which you guys seem to appreciate, especially the pictures of Julie and I torturing ourselves at the gym.
Yes, exactly.
So it's again, go to Instagram, Tim and Julie Harris. We also post on Facebook, but Instagram's the place I think where we probably have the most fun.
There you go. All right, so let's start with our questions to keep in mind as you are either making sure you're at the right broker, or maybe you're brand new choosing the right broker. Either one, here's your questions. Point number 1, has your income been flat or in decline? Question number 2, are you the best agent in your office? You don't feel challenged, or your brokerage is filled with complacent people? Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to that first question. And the reality of it is if your income has been flat or in decline, let's just focus on the flat, but you're accomplishing all your net profit goals, and you don't necessarily want to put any more effort in, and you're hitting all your financial benchmarks, that's not the same as if your income's on a decline. That's not the same if you're discovering essentially that you're running an unprofitable real estate practice. Remember, the product you produce from your real estate business is happy customers, is closed transactions, or all the things that agents normally rattle off, but the real product of your business is profit. So don't just judge your real estate success or the success of your business by the number of homes you're selling or, frankly, the dollar volume of all the homes that you're selling combined, right? You want to be measuring your success as a real estate professional by your net profit. It is incredibly important that you remember what we just said, because it's with that net profit that you can then reinvest, and the money that you then are able to reinvest into things that hopefully will create passive income for you. That is the traditional way that you build wealth as a real estate professional. You have a real estate brokerage. The real estate brokerage has profit. With the profit, then you buy rental properties. The rental properties then produce passive income, and then there's a point in not too distant future, if you do it right, where you can live off your passive income. Now, there is a new model. It's called eXp Realty. It's not really new anymore, but it creates another source of passive income for you that we're excited to tell you about here in a second.
Yeah, so point number 2 is you're the best agent in your office. What's wrong with that? Maybe I like being the best agent in my office. Well, the problem is you don't feel challenged anymore, or your brokerage might be filled with complacent people, making it overly easy for you to be the best agent in your office. Who's challenging you?
Question number 3, and like I said, we're going to go through these relatively quick because you can read the notes. The environment is bad, similar to question number 2, obviously. Are your colleagues, your broker, your brokerage on a whole, or office manager too negative and killing your motivation? In other words, when you go to the office, when you engage with anybody in your situation, your brokerage situation now, are they all basically watching too much news? Is their head full of doom and gloom? Are they all just negative about this and negative about that, talking politics with you all the time? Or is it an environment that is absolutely uplifting? When you think of your real estate brokerage, emotionally, how do you feel? Now, if you're a broker and you're thinking of your real estate brokerage, I know how you feel. You feel I'd love not to have to be in the real estate brokerage business anymore. That's how most of you feel. But from an agent's perspective, how do you feel? Do you feel uplifted, excited, or do you feel like this brokerage has the same, do you feel like this anchor is being tied around you that's preventing you actually from becoming the best version of yourself as a real estate professional? That's all about environment. It's around the people you surround yourself with, the individual agents, and the overall office. Question 4, Julie.
Question number 4, your brokerage requires you to attend too many mandatory meetings and other time-consuming, non-dollar productive activities. We hear this complaint a lot. The coaches get this a lot. My brokerage is just making me go to too many things. They don't seem meaningful to me. And that could be, tours. It could be educational things that just you're not interested in or aren't really required. So just a distraction generally.
Right. And there's a lot of agents that are thinking that this is, they've only been at office brokerages where there's an office meeting that lasts 3 hours every Monday, and that's what they've always done it that way. So they think that's normal. And all these different service providers, the bug guy, the title guy, they all come in there and tell you about it. That is an enormous look. If you want to go to that, go to that. But the reality of it is it's mostly a waste of time. Yep. And some of these brokerages out there, especially the franchises, they make you attend especially as a new agent, they make you attend so much goofiness that really could be learned on the job. And so, in other words, the environment itself that brokerage has is not in alignment with you becoming a very successful, very profitable real estate agent as fast as possible. And that really is key. You don't have a long financial runway to get ready to get started. You don't, right?
There's no time to waste. I mean, that's the bottom line.
In our 20 years, almost 30 years in the real estate business, it was 20 years as being real estate coaches. I can remember on one hand how many people came to this industry already essentially financially independent. I shouldn't say it that way. Came to us as coaching clients, actually having been already financially independent. It's maybe 3 people total. Yeah. Most people get into this industry as, frankly, it's changing, but most people traditionally have gotten in this industry as a part-time job or as a fallback thing. Now people are choosing, especially younger people, are choosing this industry right out of the gates, right out of college, or sometimes skipping college and getting in the industry and see this as a long-term career. By the way, that is, without a doubt, one of the most under-celebrated, most exciting things about the residential real estate industry are the millennials who are seeing this not as a fallback to the fallback to the fallback, but are actually treating this as their long-term career. Because guess what? Julie and I did the same thing, and it worked out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Nice job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Julie.
That's right.
Point number 5, your broker or office manager shoots down every idea that isn't traditional 1970s, 1980s, even 90s real estate. The broker offers no tech support or bad tech support or has no added value for being an agent with their office. If your brokerage isn't, for example, 100% online and doesn't have its own metaverse, how will the next generation of buyers perceive that brokerage? Or more importantly, how will they perceive you? And there are actually a surprising amount of offices. I hear agents complain about them all the time, that they just don't have the technological support. They feel like they have to search it out themselves, train themselves on everything. They don't even want to meet their clients at the office because it's antiquated.
So I want you to imagine that you are a real estate broker. A lot of you listening are real estate brokers, or you're a team leader or an office manager, and you're having to compete with, say, for example, eXp Realty. And the agents are coming to you knowing that eXp Realty has its own metaverse. If you don't know what a metaverse is, I want you to go to YouTube and watch a video on metaverse, or watch a video.
Well, we did a whole podcast series of it.
Watch a video on eXp's system that they own, a company that eXp owns called Verbella. Do some homework on what an actual metaverse is. But I'll shortcut your learning curve. A metaverse is the new way that essentially online is going to be done. It's Web 3.0. There's all kinds of fancy words that people are coming up to describe it. But really, at the end of the day, the metaverse is how people are going to interact when they're interacting with other humans on the internet. And if your brokerage does not have a metaverse, or is not quickly trying to adopt one, or, which frankly, there's not really, I guess Facebook is coming out with a commercial one that businesses are going to be able to start using. But eXp Realty was originally born online, never a bricks and mortar situation. They were always an online brokerage. And Glenn Sanford bought Verbella a number of years ago. And when you see and experience what it's like to be in a metaverse, international metaverse real estate brokerage, it will blow your mind. Once you've experienced that just once, the idea of going into a real estate office and sitting around on old vinyl chairs while you listen to the bug and termite guy explain to you why his services are better than the other one, you will never go back. And that is really the transition that all of us are in the brokerage space. So does your brokerage have a metaverse? Is your brokerage 100% online? Chances are, unless it's eXp Realty, the answer is no and no. Next question.
Point number 6, your broker takes a cut out of every source of income, including home warranty sales and processing fees. That just means they're squeezing you harder and not being as supportive as they could be. Point number 7, your broker offers no real support or help beyond transactions. I do get a lot of that complaint from agents. They've already sold more than their broker has, or their broker doesn't have the answer to questions and they just have to go and do it on their own.
Well, that's really important. Again, going back to eXp Realty's metaverse, when you have a question for a broker, so I get this question a lot, frankly,
Yes.
talking to agents. Mm-hmm. Like, what happens if I have a question? I want to join eXp. I want to join eXp with you guys, Tim and Julie Harris. So how do I, what happens if I have a question? Well, there's, it's difficult for me to overly express how available people are there to help you. You can go on the metaverse and ask questions. You can go into eXp's workplace and ask questions. You can actually, in many cases, call your broker, text your broker, call your broker's office, assistants, ask them. There is basically 24/7 help anytime you run into any problems whatsoever when you're transacting. If you're a new agent and you join eXp Realty, you are assigned to a mentor who's going to help you with obviously the transactional aspects of becoming a successful agent. The point being is right now, so many of you have settled and accepted the fact that you will occasionally get a call back from your broker, that if you happen to, be in the office at the right time, you might be able to ask a question. You have accepted the fact that you have to go to Google half the time or call your board of realtors to get questions answered. That's what your brokerage should be doing. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing your own homework. Obviously, that's a great idea. You can, that's fantastic. All of us should definitely use the super secret service called Google first. But beyond that, isn't it nice knowing that anytime you have a challenge with any real estate transactions, you can go directly to your broker online? You can go online to eXp World using their metaverse called Verbella. You can go to Workplace, eXp's exclusive workplace program through Facebook. You can, like I said, communicate directly through your broker and office manager. No problems whatsoever ever getting any help. And the reason I was laughing before is because people are often, especially agents who are never experienced anything like this before, they're so used to being lone rangers, right?
Yeah.
They get into the industry, or they've been in the industry, and they think, well, you know what, I don't ever really, if you work out of your house especially, this is true, you don't have a lot of interaction with other humans other than maybe transactionally, or maybe your buyers and sellers. But the idea that you actually can have around you a complete supportive environment that's going to help you not just to get better as a practitioner, but also as a person. I heard Glenn Sanford say something the other day, which I thought was interesting. He said, we are a self-improvement company that's funded by real estate transactions.
Oh, I like that.
I do too.
And I believe that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do. I mean, having spent a lot of time there and seeing how supportive agents and brokers are of each other.
Well, and eXp Realty owns Success Magazine, the Success website. If you guys don't know what that is, it's pretty incredible. But you can hear in our voices how, frankly, proud we are to be aligned with eXp Realty. You guys will love the story, and there's a reason we're going through these questions relatively quick. Again, you can print these questions off and use them. They're available on our website, timandjulieharris.com, iTunes, and also Spotify. But when we get to the story that Julie's about to read, I think some of you will have a chuckle. All right, next question.
Well, points number 8, 9, and 10 are all simple yes or no questions. So take notes. Point number 8, does your brokerage have an iBuyer program? It's either yes or no. They either have one or they don't.
And if you don't know what an iBuyer program is, it's like Open Door. It's essentially a way for you to work directly with wholesalers so you can find a property that's for sale. And maybe here's the thing that a lot of eXp agents don't even understand. You can go to the MLS. You can find a property that's for sale. You can say, well, you know what? This might be good for an investor. You can then take said property to the iBuyer program at eXp, which is called
Express Offers.
And you have to be Express Offer certified, but that's just a class. So you become Express Offer certified. You can then present that prospective buy to the investor into the investor portal. They then decide to buy it if they decide to buy it. They then fix it up, and then guess what? You get paid on the sale of that house, even if it wasn't your listing. It was a co-op. You sold that house to the investor. The investor then fixes the house up, and then guess what? You get the listing again. Now, there's a great scenario, and a lot of you could be, your wheels are already spinning, thinking of all the ways you can make money. Well, how about this one? You are competing with another agent for a listing. And maybe this listing or this seller is also considering wholesaling it to some wholesaler or some investor, or maybe they're thinking about selling it to Open Door. If you're a normal agent in a normal brokerage and you don't have the EXP iBuyer program, what are you going to do? You're going to have to talk them out of basically wholesaling the house. Maybe they don't care about the last cent on the transaction. Maybe what they're more focused on is the convenience of getting the house sold quickly. If you don't have that available for your prospective age or your prospective clients, they're not going to list with you. They're not going to do business with you. You are obsolete. You have now allowed yourself to be replaced by essentially somebody that's offering a higher level of service just because you chose the wrong brokerage. Does that make sense?
Yes, we had a new coaching client I spoke with personally last week who came to us specifically to join EXP and to join Premier Coaching exactly because he just lost a listing opportunity to OfferPad. And it was very painful for him. He did not have an objection handler.
OfferPad or Open Door?
I'm sorry, Open Door. Open Door. Because they offered the seller, he didn't have the opportunity to compete.
Right, and more real estate brokerages are going to try to have their own iBuyer program. But again, EXP is the first international now online brokerage. They're the first ones that are offering some of the things we're about to tell you guys about. And they're the easiest to work with. They're not allowing you to become obsolete. They're not allowing the Open Doors and all these other iBuyer companies to all of a sudden make it so that you are not having the latest and greatest technology to offer your prospective clients. Personally, with all those different ways you can make money using the iBuyer program through EXP, that in itself is a reason for you guys to choose EXP as your brokerage.
Express Offer, yes. All right, point number 9, again, yes or no, does your broker offer revenue share? Different than profit share. Do you want to talk about that or not?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's revenue share is the 8th greatest wonder of the world.
Yes.
That's available only to people in the world with real estate licenses. And revenue share is something we can talk about on a different podcast. Actually, I'll give you guys some information where you can research it. Just let me think how. Okay, text EXP to 47372 and you can watch some videos about revenue share. Text EXP to 47372. You will then be sent a link back and you can watch some videos about EXP and the revenue share program specifically. And also I'm going to give you guys some more direction on getting direct information about EXP and revenue share and all the other things we're talking about here in a second. And remember, message and data rates may apply.
Yes, point number 10, again, a yes or no question. Does your broker offer opportunity to purchase stock or do they offer stock rewards? They either do or they do not.
Let me talk a little bit about that.
Yep.
EXP's got a program that I'm going to explain this to you guys, you won't believe it. It's so incredible. It's called the ICON program. So at EXP Realty, your cap is, if you're a residential agent, and yes, there's a commercial agent division as well. That's fantastic, frankly.
Indeed.
You and I have attracted a lot of amazing commercial agents to eXp Realty. So if you're commercial, eXp is still perfect for you. And by the way, the commission split at eXp Realty to be a commercial agent is probably like a tenth of what you're paying now. Incredible. So let's talk about the opportunity to purchase stock. There's a program at eXp Realty called the Icon program. And here's how it works. I'm going to go through this relatively quick, but the big takeaway here is I want you to realize that as we promised, eXp Realty is perhaps the only brokerage that we've ever come across that is truly in the agent business. You know, the old question as we started out with is, what are you paying your broker? This is evidence that eXp is focused on, frankly, what are they paying you? Now, you pay your $16,000 to eXp Realty. That is equivalent. So when you earn, you guys follow me on the math here, right? I'm going to make this as clear as possible using the fewest number of words. So when you earn $80,000, let me start a different way. You're on an 80-20 split at eXp Realty. You pay 20% of the commission you're earning to eXp Realty until you paid in a maximum of $16,000. Once you paid in $16,000, then you are 100% commission, no additional commission split. That's the equivalent of having a total gross commission income of about $80,000. And in many of your markets, that's a handful of transactions. In most of your markets, it's no more than like 5 or 6 deals. So you do your transactions, you have a total gross GCI. Now, this is a gross, so the closing pays the brokerage $10,000. It pays eXp $10,000. The commission split is based on that. There's no deductions or any of this other Mickey Mouse that a lot of brokerages do. By the way, yes, eXp is licensed in all 50 states. Yes, there are humans that are brokers in all 50 states, and many states have more than one broker. So we should have said that earlier. Now, after you cap and you pay in your $16,000, here's where something magical happens. I don't even know who started this program at eXp, but it's amazing. So after you pay in your $16,000, if you sell an additional 20 homes, or you have a total GCI, gross commission income of $500,000, then you qualify to be part of the Icon program. And without getting into the weeds of the details, it's all, nothing really too onerous. But once you qualify for the Icon program and you hit Icon, it's a big celebration, then you will be awarded up to $16,000 of EXPI stock. You will be given the equivalent of $16,000 in EXPI stock back to you. So the cap you paid in at $16,000, because you sold after you capped, which frankly for many of you it's relatively straightforward and easy to do, especially if you're in one of these higher priced areas, right? It's $16,000. Once you capped, you sell an additional 20 units or have a total GCI of $500,000. Either or, right? Lower end areas are going to have more. It's going to be easier to hit the 20 additional units than the higher end. You guys get the point of it. What do you end up with? You end up with $16,000 of EXPI stock. I'm oversimplifying it, but the point is that Julie and I have coaching clients who've been in EXP Realty now as long as we have. We're going on a little better than 3 years. And some of them hit Icon every single year and have accumulated, because of the stock splits and the 2-for-1 stock split, they've accumulated an enormous amount of EXPI stock. And that enormous amount of EXPI stock, it costs them nothing. Now, you could argue that they didn't really end up paying EXPI anything, or EXP Realty anything, because the stock that was given to them and the actual appreciation and potential future appreciation. Julie and I are not stock pickers. We're certainly not financial experts, but here's what I know. Your broker doesn't do that, do they?
No, here's the super cool thing about that, okay? For EXP, it is not enough to just put you on 100% after you pay your cap. Now, any brokerage, which most of them don't even have 100% possibility, eXp could very well have said, you know what, that's pretty awesome, we'll stop there. No, they keep you incentivized to continue to be a producer and earner to help more people. And once you do, they give you that $16,000 back. That's like, agents don't think there's anything better than 100%. That's better than 100%.
Hell yeah, it is.
It's amazing.
Well, because what it's doing is it's forced savings.
Yes, it is.
That's what it is. And I think it was Glenn actually that said there's 2 things agents don't do very well, which is save money and pay their taxes on time.
Which I would agree with.
Yeah,
as a
definitely
coach.
true. Yep. And what this will do is, and I've had this conversation before too, where I'll have agents that are in our group. Our group is called Libertas. And if you guys want to join our eXp Realty group, you can text me directly at 512-758-0206. If you want to be, frankly, partners with Julie and I at eXp Realty and in your real estate business, just text me directly at 512-758-0206. And just in the subject line, put EXP, and let's get the conversation started. But what eXp is able to do now is, let's just say, for example, well, let me give the example of the conversation I've had before. People in our group don't know, because they've never taken the time, how to log in to the stock system and see how many shares of stock they have.
Those are like the best calls ever, aren't they?
Oh, I love it. And so they don't know that
Yeah.
they've actually accumulated, in some cases, thousands, if not tens of thousands of shares
Yes.
of EXPI. They don't know that they have essentially accumulated. And I remember one, now she did buy some additional shares, but I remember Colette had experienced or had accumulated over 7 figures in EXPI Realty shares. And this was after like 2.5 years.
Well, so let's define what a stock award is. It is literally a stock that is given to you that shows up in the account that Tim was just talking about.
Yep.
Now, you also can, of course, purchase stock in addition to that. But that's why you get stock given to you. You don't even realize it unless you log in, which is pretty amazing.
Well, it is. To me, in my mind, in my heart, I'm thinking, how many agents out there are accumulating any sort of savings or net worth? Vast majority of agents retire broke.
This is true.
EXP, if you take advantage of all the amazing things that they created for agents, revenue share, now we're talking about stock. If you actually just lean into those things and you just do it as part of your normal course of doing business, by accident, you are going to accumulate far more savings, maybe even enough for you to completely be financially independent. Now, Julie and I talked before about your mission of running real estate businesses to run a profitable real estate, and with that real estate business and with that profit to reinvest it into things like, real estate, residential homes, multifamilies, whatever. Julie and I have done that since we were in our early 20s. But there is nothing that we have seen. This is such a massive wealth accelerator. The exponential benefit of being associated with EXP Realty can change lives. Again, agents don't realize it. They don't know. Look, if you're a new agent and we're talking on the phone, I'm going to tell you your number one mission is to sell houses to become transactional 100% of the time. But once you start getting in the flow of things, once you start making money, once you start having momentum, then what you're going to realize is that EXP Realty is going to create other opportunities for you to create wealth. You can actually have a plan to make it so that you are no longer solely dependent on selling real estate, which frankly, I don't want to jump on a little story that Julie's about to read, but that is the number one reason why Julie and I chose to start sharing with all of you, our loyal podcast listeners, coaching clients, people that have purchased our book, all the rest of you, why we chose to share with EXP about the EXP story and opportunity with all of you. Because it creates non-transactionally based income, which makes it so you can be rich where your money works for you and you no longer work for your money. Aside from winning the lottery or Ed McMahon knocking on your door, the only other source of agents being able to do that would have been what? A liquidity event that happened, somehow. Maybe you got it right on Bitcoin or something like that. Or most likely, it's going to happen from accumulating rental properties. Accumulating rental properties is a tried and true way of doing it. Anyone and everyone that's in the real estate industry should be, or even outside the industry, should be buying rental properties. Julie and I have dozens of them. But I have to tell you right now, if we knew about EXP Realty when we got started in real estate in our early 20s and 30s, I promise you our early 20s, I promise you we would not have accumulated this many rental properties.
Nope.
Because they are, they require a lot of care and feeding, and they're not always home runs.
They're not exactly passive, if we're being honest.
Well, rental properties are definitely not passive.
Yes, that's a myth.
All right, so what's the
point
next
number
point?
11?
Point number 11.
And I think you'll be able to answer that based on what you just heard. You know that your brokerage and their business approach is quickly becoming obsolete. If they don't sound like what we just described, they are quickly becoming obsolete.
You can feel it with the vibe in the office, right?
For sure.
I mean, how about this? If there is an office, it's becoming obsolete.
Indeed. And most of you figured that out during COVID, by the way.
You're in it, look, and don't be offended. Just open your mind. Remember, we said we know that some of you love your situation, love the people in your office, never want to change, but you just need to open your mind because you are in business to be in business. And I realize it's easy, and we have done this in the past ourselves, to become emotionally attached to an office. Well, 5 years from now, 12 months from now, let's say, would you have been happy had you created multiple streams of income so that if the economy does get worse, if there are other headwinds and black swans and all the rest of it that some people are predicting, that those things don't adversely affect you financially? Would you be, how happy on a scale of 1 to 10 will you be having created enough passive income so that frankly your money is working for you, you no longer have to work for your money, or stating it more clearly, you have enough money coming in every single month that all of your personal overhead is covered. So it does not matter. There could be another pandemic. There could be, whatever happens, you are financially set. How would you feel having made the decision in the future? How would you feel about yourself looking back at the present version of yourself, knowing that you made that decision. I know some of you have emotional attachments, and that's normal and natural, but you have to be thinking about the future version of yourself, and that's why eXp Realty, frankly, is the fastest growing real estate brokerage in what I believe the history of real estate brokerages, but 21 different countries. The numbers are absolutely extraordinary. Over 100,000 agents by the end of this year and growing. The goal is within the next few years to have 500,000 agents. Why not? There's agents all over the world. This brokerage is the future of real estate brokerages. Other real estate brokerages are going to have they can go really, really small, or they're going to have to copy eXp Realty. There's not going to be a lot in the middle. You want proof? Look what happened to Netflix. Netflix started allowing people to stream, and all the other content providers then emulated Netflix. But Netflix still has the most subscribers, has the most users, has the most content. And when you look at a real estate brokerage, it's obviously a hell of a lot more complicated to do what eXp Realty has already done. So eXp Realty is always going to have the advantage in the online real estate space, and even more so because as the economy starts to be more and more sketch, more brokerages, more team leaders, more everybody is going to start leaning into eXp because they're all going to answer the question that I asked you a second ago. Tim, I wish I would have had more sources of passive income so I did not have to be so vulnerable to the essentially the ups and downs of the economy. I wish I would have built a mansion on land that I owned. That's what you can do at eXp Realty.
Yes, and by the way, if you are worried about, maybe you have a small family brokerage, it's okay for all of you to come to eXp. That's all right too.
Matter of fact, you can keep and we want you to keep that's a really great point, Julie. When you join eXp Realty, you keep your name. It's not a franchise. eXp Realty is not going to dominate, its state laws aside, is not going to dominate the brand that you created for yourself or a legacy brand that you have.
It doesn't negate all of your marketing, your brand, your look, your feel, your colors. You can keep all of that, which I also think is very commendable from the get-go, that being true about eXp, because not all brokerages act that way.
But it also tells you, frankly, a lot about the personalities of Glenn and the other people that started it. They, from the start, knew, because Glenn was a top-producing agent. Glenn knew, and obviously he's proven out to be true, that the reason that consumers will choose a real estate practitioner, an agent, isn't the brokerage they're associated with. It's the individual agent. And if you're not been in business long enough to know what I just said is true, well, I'm just saving you the learning curve. You will or won't do business, not because the brokerage you're associated with, but because of you personally. So you got to see the brokerage as what it is. It's there as an operating system for essentially for your business. That's how you need to think of it, an operating system for your business. And if you have a big brand, if you have something you spend a lot of money and time on creating, and it's got dominance in your marketplace or it's up and coming, keep the brand. Don't change it. All it has to say, again, depending on your state laws, is brokered by eXp Realty.
That's right, which brings us to point number 12. If your brokerage is not constantly focused on agent experience, education, and success, to your point about Glenn being very agent-centric, the best brokers are in the agent business. Agents are in the housing business. You have to have that agent experience, the education, the success, being surrounded by support. If you don't feel that way, you need to make a change.
If I might state this incorrectly, I probably will, but I believe inside eXp World, every single week, there's over 50 educational opportunities.
It's constant.
So if you wanted to learn about distressed real estate, there's training going on. If you want to learn about luxury, there's training going on. If you want to learn a little bit about appraisal, there's training going on.
But you choose what you want to go to. It's not like, all right, today's office meeting is about this. You like it or you don't. You go there and you look up, maybe you have an appraisal question. You want to take that, you go listen to that class. And maybe tomorrow you've got a different thing you need to be educated on.
And the best thing, what we really love, is the classes are being taught by actual practitioners, not by pontificators.
Right.
And by the way, these classes cost you nothing.
Yep. All right, point number 13, another thing that's amazing. What is your legacy? Is your brokerage partnering with you to create passive income that, get this, can be inherited?
That's something that, I think you have to be a certain age to appreciate that.
Well, that's true.
Well, but for example, I knew somebody, okay, I'm not going to use, a lot of our podcast listeners will know who this is, so I'm not going to use any names. I'm going to make it super general. But somebody very near and dear to our hearts passed away suddenly. And a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. And this person was very successful at eXp Realty. This person had a real estate license, but I'll just say it, her husband didn't. So what eXp Realty allowed to have happen, and she had a very significant revenue share. She was receiving lots of passive income from revenue share. In other words, she was receiving money every single month from the agents that she had sponsored and brought into eXp Realty. What eXp Realty allowed her to do, or allowed her husband to do, is they gave him 12 months to get a real estate license, and then he's going to inherit that revenue share. Now, what happens if he decides he doesn't want to necessarily mess around with real estate anymore? Well, or just whatever. The line can be inherited by their kids. Now, here's something else that's interesting. There's actually, this isn't discussed very frequently, but it is something that's available at eXp. You can actually retire, let's say, for example, through revenue share. I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but I'm trying to expand your thinking. You get into revenue share, and let's say you end up making, $8,000 or $10,000 a month passively from eXp Realty. I'm not putting any numbers around it or time frames. I'm not making any income statements or anything like that. I'm just giving you an example. So you are making $10,000 a month at eXp, but let's just say you want to, and it's passive, right? It's coming in from revenue share. You're an owner in the company. You have stock. You're making the money passively. As in passively, the money comes in. There's no expenses against it. But let's say you want to go with Elon Musk to Mars. Well, actually, he's not going. But let's say you want to go to Mars. Sure. And you don't want to necessarily have to worry about whether or not you have to have a certain number of agents that you personally, that are called FLQA, sponsored agents. And let's say you just want to completely retire. Well, eXp Realty will let you retire and you still receive that passive income even after you've completely disengaged from real estate. It's created a pathway for all of you to have passive income that would normally have only been experienced if you had, say, for example, some old school pension or, frankly, a bunch of paid off real estate. Again, I've gotten a little bit advanced with what I just described, but the bottom line is eXp Realty is built around what's best for agents. And when you hear brokerages say we're in the agent business, no, you're not. You're not in the agent business. You're in the agent business in the sense that, you're charging agents fees, and you're charging them annual fees, and you're charging them owners' commission splits, and you're making them needling and diming them every step of the way. eXp Realty is designed around, like Glenn says, it's a self-improvement company that's actually funded through real estate transactions. And you can see that he's sincere, and the whole company is sincere about actually doing the things that are in the betterment of agents. Based on what I just said to you, you can actually create legacy wealth for yourself, for your grandchildren, for your great-grandchildren, not just from the money you've accumulated and they inherit, but the revenue share line can be passed from generation to generation to generation as it continues to grow. I'll give you a very salient example. Julie and I know agents who have been associated with eXp Realty who have revenue share groups of 5,000, 6,000 agents. I'm not sure if we should really talk about the amount of money that they're earning per month, but let me just tell you, it's very, very significant. In some cases, millions and millions of dollars that's coming in passively to them from revenue share. It's mind-boggling to think about if you've never been exposed to something like this. But when you meet the people that are actually doing it and you realize that you can do it yourself, you realize that all you need to have is a path to follow, then you can create alternative versions. You can create a totally different, like what do they call for Steve Jobs, a reality distortion field?
Yes.
I mean, that's really what this is. Your present trajectory is to sell more houses, hopefully peel off enough money that you can buy enough rental properties that hopefully one day you can actually retire. Well, this is a reality distortion field in that you can shorten that curve. And by the way, you don't have to wait until your 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s to enjoy the benefits of passive income. We know lots of people in their 20s and 30s that are earning millions of dollars a year from passive income from eXp Realty. You can do the same thing. Now, I do have to suggest to you that one of the most important decisions you have to make when you're choosing to join eXp Realty is the sponsor you choose. Now, obviously, Julie and I are biased. We'd love for you to be sponsored by us. But make sure you're choosing a sponsor that is actually going to be in alignment with what your particular goals are, not just selling real estate, but also with building your revenue share group. If you don't know what revenue share is, if it's not even of interest to you, I get it. I totally understand. But after you start selling more homes, after you run into people that are just like you, that are making lots of money from passive income, I promise you, you're going to start realizing that revenue share is something you want to pursue as well. So choosing a sponsor that's going to help you sponsor is absolutely incredibly important. And so what I'm about to share with you guys is something that we announced last week. Julie and I, for the people that we're personally sponsoring at eXp Realty, these are personally sponsored by Tim and Julie Harris at eXp Realty. If you're filling out the application, it's Julie Harris, Georgetown, Texas. For those agents, we are going to give you our $3,000 Premier Coaching Program. That includes a daily semi-private coaching call. You get that for free. In addition to that, we're also going to obviously work hand in hand with you, not just to build your real estate business, but help you build your revenue share group. And more details to follow. If you're interested in having Julie and I sponsor you at eXp Realty, please text me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206.
All right, point number 14, is your brokerage international? And I'll give you a really quick example from last week's coaching. One of our premier coaching clients has not one, not two, but 3 leads in no other than Lake Como, Italy.
That's
okay.
awesome.
Now, normally you'd be like, okay, well, that's nice, but I don't really know anybody in Italy. But he was able to connect through EXP to get a referral worked out and build a relationship. That's not the only story I've had like that. Lots of business with Australia. I mean, maybe that only happens to you once a year, but you're glad that it happened. Well, and really the bigger story is the fact that EXP already is international and getting bigger.
Colombia, Panama, Israel, Italy,
Portugal,
France, Portugal,
yeah.
Obviously Canada, Mexico. I mean, 21 different countries and growing really fast.
India even, I think.
Yeah, India.
Yeah,
that's one actually. India is one of the fastest growing EXP international markets. But isn't that cool?
It's really cool. I think it's great for them to have exposure to international agents too.
And question number 15, I'm going to read because I'll read it with lots of energy and enthusiasm because I just wrote it.
Yep.
Are you optimistic and excited? Are you truly excited to tell people about your brokerage? Or do you feel like you're part of the next generation of the real estate industry? And I'll give you the juxtaposition to this. Or are you just sort of mumbling about your real estate brokerage? Like you don't care about your real estate brokerage. You have no emotional attachment to your real estate brokerage. Your real estate brokerage is just something you have to be associated with because you want to sell real estate, right? Is that how you feel about it? Well, how would you feel once you sort of, I get some of you are just feeling totally overwhelmed by this podcast and not really clearly understanding all the ramifications of the brokerage you choose. Again, we've made it easy for you just to pop over to our website and you can watch the videos that we've set up for you to view so you can, and I think slower pace, learn more about eXp Realty. Just text the letters EXP to 47372. Text the letters EXP to 47372. Remember, message and data rates may apply. But also, if you just want to text me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206, I will also send you all the direct links so you guys can watch the video and have all your questions answered. But how I'm hoping you feel, how we felt after we actually finally got it, was realizing that we can actually have alternative, we can help within our coaching clients and within our podcast listeners and all of our book purchasers. We can actually give you guys something that expands upon what our mission as real estate coaches has always been, which is being of service to all of you. So what Julie is going to read to you now, and hopefully I got all the pronouns correctly in here because I had to go back and fix it all.
That's right. We'll fix it.
Yeah. So if Julie stumbles a few times, just because of my bad editing.
All right. So our opinion of how to choose a broker all changed back on May 12th, 2018, and we will never forget that day. It started at 7:13 a.m. when we received an email from a longtime elite coaching client, Brandon, a broker of an office with no less than 400 agents. And around 9 a.m. that day, we received another rather panicked call from another longtime California broker client. And then maybe 20 other similar calls, emails, texts from other brokers and team leaders over the next week or so. Over the next week or so. They were all asking the same question. The question was, what is the deal with eXp Realty and why am I losing agents to them?
Now, it's important to understand that Julie and I still have lots of coaching relationships all over the country and in Canada and a few places in Europe with non-eXp Realty brokers and non-eXp Realty agents. So we were receiving this this was a mass exodus that was happening because what was happening is eXp's Realty had always been, their growth has always been, I shouldn't say it's our growth, right? Mm-hmm. But the growth curve of eXp has always been on the up and up, like a hockey stick basically. But starting in 2018, that's when it really started taking off. And there was a mass exodus going toward where agents were leaving and brokerages and teams were leaving to go to eXp Realty. That is happening again right now because of the economy.
That's right. But remember, back in 2018, eXp was still relatively unknown, especially compared to now. So it's an incredible how much difference a few years has made now that eXp is quickly becoming the world's largest real estate brokerage. So why are all my best agents and teams leaving to go to eXp Realty? That was the question. And in truth, we didn't know much about eXp. Again, this was back in 2018. Like most of our industry friends, top clients, longtime most trusted advisors, we honestly had not paid that much attention to eXp. Don't get us wrong. We had heard of EXP. We knew they were virtual. We knew they had a revenue share model and offered stock. We had read on Inman's site about the executive team they built, and we knew it was all impressive stuff, but honestly, we hadn't given it that much thought. That was it. So we called 3 of the top industry types whom we trust, and all 3 told us the same thing. eXp Realty is offering agents something that no other company ever has.
Well, I'll tell you, and I remember exactly those phone calls because I'm the one that made them.
Yep.
Is that, and Julie's about to share with you one of them. These brokerages were all franchise broker. Well, 2 of the guys were the CEOs and presidents, those, that level C-suite of franchises. And when, in essence, they were telling me is that they realized that their brokerage model, their franchise model, was very much being threatened by eXp Realty, and they could not compete with eXp Realty. They could not. There was no revenue share program at their brokerage. There was no opportunity for agents to earn equity in the company. There were no expansive opportunities like there are at eXp Realty. And so these brokerages and these guys running these brokerages, what they were saying to us as longtime friends were not saying what they were saying publicly. What they were saying publicly was everything's bright and shiny and everything's fine. What they were saying privately is they know and they knew, and guess what? They were all right, that eXp Realty was soon going to become the world's largest real estate brokerage.
That's right. So, quote, eXp is the biggest thing to happen in real estate for almost 30 years. That was a comment from one of the most respected, well-known industries that we spoke with. Again, we weren't just calling random people. We were calling people that were ex-CEOs and things like that. One of the folks who told you, Tim, about what eXp is the former CEO, again, of a very well-known company. And in 2018, this real estate brand was perhaps the most recognizable brand in real estate. He told you that eXp is going to completely change the way brokerage works. And we still didn't believe it. Like most people, we're skeptical by nature. We needed more information before we wanted to recommend any one broker to our members and our listeners. So then, Tim, you called your friends at NAR and Inman, and all reports came back the same. eXp is going to be the biggest brokerage in the world. In just last year alone, 2018, eXp had started with a little over 5,000 agents and ended the year with 16,000.
Well, see,
that was back then.
That's an edit I need to make, right?
I know. Well, you said back in 2018, it had gone from 5,000 to 16,000. Yep.
Right. So this is something we originally wrote back in early 2019, but I just want you guys to read that again. And like I said, there were some edits I still need to make. But in the last year alone, as in 2018, eXp started the year at the beginning of 2018 with over 5,000 agents, ended the year with over 16,000 agents. So you guys know, 2022, it's pacing right now to have 100,000 agents in 21 different countries in the next 7 months. And then well on their way with the current momentum to have 500,000 agents the next few years. And here's the thing you got to understand. The changing real estate market, the changing economy on a whole, is going to essentially accelerate the growth of eXp. Why? Because it's a superior brokerage model. As the real estate market starts to change, as home sales, it's just everything we talk about in this podcast. As those things really start to take hold and people realize what Julie and I frankly have been saying for years, it's all going to play out exactly more or less like we predicted it would. That means more agents, more brokerages, more team leaders are going to say, for me to continue to grow, for me to continue to be viable, for me to actually make more profit, for me to actually build wealth for myself and my family and my future generations, I'm going to have to change the way I'm doing things. The old model that I'm trying to make work isn't working. The old franchise model or wherever else isn't working. eXp Realty clearly is working or it wouldn't be growing at this pace. And like I said, it's going to grow faster. The company is going to grow faster. More agents are going to be joining at a quicker pace because of the headwinds that are happening overall in the economy.
Yes, but back in 2018, we were still being kind of block-headed skeptics.
Yes, we were.
Okay, like maybe just a few of you listening might be feeling that way too. We are being honest with you. We were still being very skeptical. But then we decided to hire somebody to pour over eXp's public filings because it's traded as EXPI. And in our minds, what they were offering to agents almost seemed too good to be true. The nice thing about a company that's traded on the NASDAQ is that all company financials are there for your reading. But we're not experts at reading 10Ks, et cetera. So exactly, I just proved the point.
Exactly.
So our CFO hired Gunn and did it for us, somebody that did know how to read that. So the bottom line was, he told us that they have an amazing company and that they are going to consider buying stock in EXPI.
Well, but I'm going to add to that. So yep. eXp Realty has no debt. There is no borrowing of money to keep the lights on. eXp Realty makes an enormous profit. eXp is not only selling, like making, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure last quarter they had $1 billion in transaction volume and hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. Again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Yep. May have been tens of millions, but the point is they're making a profit where most brokerages lose money, and most brokerages, just to make ends meet, are having to borrow money just to essentially continue an operation.
Yes, but even then we were only sort of mostly convinced.
Well, back when we started, the naysayers, especially the big brokerage or the big franchises, were saying eXp will never work because of the revenue share program or because of the stock. They'll never work. How is this company is not going to have long-term viability? Well, they're all absolutely incorrect. 100% wrong, and they're realizing that at high frequency now, so much so that they're all talking about trying to emulate in some way what eXp is doing, but they really can't. And this is an important note to make. If you're an existing franchise and you have offices all over the place, and you have bricks and mortar, and you have regions sold, and you have all these expenses and all these people that you have contractual arrangements with, how can you copy eXp Realty? You can't.
Nope.
You can't. You've already essentially set your business model in stone, and you can't go back. You can't create a competing business model to compete with your franchise. So what are you going to do? You're just going to watch eXp eat your lunch. That's what you're going to do.
And in the beginning, you're going to say, well, nobody's ever heard of them, and that'll never work because you don't want to believe what was happening. So eventually, we actually did meet with eXp, and at that point, we realized we probably should have told all of our coaching clients and podcast listeners about eXp years before. But we, like some of you listening, might have felt a little bit embarrassed for not knowing more about eXp back then and how they were truly helping agents. So what we're going to tell you is the final critical and very personal part of why we're sharing this with you. So despite all that we had learned, we still didn't want to talk about eXp on our show, this podcast, to all of you, even though we knew it was a stellar deal for agents, again, after doing a lot of research. Even though we were convinced that all of you would massively benefit, we still didn't really feel comfortable talking about eXp or wanting to align ourselves with any one brokerage. So what was our fear? Now we're being really honest with you guys, aren't we? So simple, we didn't want to piss some of you off. Our flawed thinking was that some of you would be offended that we were promoting a specific real estate company over another. And we have never, ever aligned with any real estate brokerage outside of when we sold real estate when we had to.
So one of the top questions we get from new coaching, well, any coaching client really, is which real estate brokerage should we join? And really up until the point where eXp was on our radar, we would say whichever one you like the best, whichever one's closest to you, whichever. We didn't give a real answer. Why? Because all brokerages were basically the same. And there was no real benefit one over the other. Generally speaking, they're all basically the same. So that's it. Now, when eXp Realty came along, it took us, again, a little while to accept the fact that this was such a massive, absolute huge shift in the industry. And now we're seeing luxury agents. We're seeing big teams, small teams,
Commercial
individual agents, commercial. It's perfect for everyone. When we started, we were a little with eXp, and this was in January 2019. We were a little skeptical to suggest that luxury agents use eXp. But we were wrong. Guess what? Because we recruited some eXp. We recruited some luxury agents, and they're doing phenomenal. Because why? The consumers don't care what brokerage you're associated with. They're doing business with you, the individual. And why not choose to be aligned with a broker that is going to help you, avoid being broke?
There you go. That's right. And remember, luxury agents listening to this, eXp in no way says to you, you know what? eXp has got to be more dominant than your brand. They are supportive of all of the hard work that you've put into that. Now, here's back to our story. One of our nervousnesses, whatever that word is that we have never accepted any money from any company in exchange for access to all of you. We took maybe false pride in believing that we were real estate agnostic. In translation, we never aligned with any other companies like Zillow or Bank of America. Why? So that you would feel comfortable listening to us without questioning our motivation. Remember, we're from Ohio, and integrity is number one for us.
If we all of a sudden became sponsored by Zillow, we're obviously not going to be able to share with you our actual opinions of doing business with Zillow, right? If we became associated with any of these big companies that are wanting to sell you guys leads and whatnot, and they became major supporters and financial supporters of this podcast, we're not going to be able to really tell you what we think about them. So we lose our objectivity. That's what Julia was referring to in that last line.
That's right. And we know how you feel about that. So being completely honest, possibly too transparent, we personally felt a little tortured by this, and we were experiencing real conflict. So Here's the option number 1, to tell you about EXP and maybe lose your confidence because we were aligning with a third party. And note, the irony is that by not sharing with you all the benefits of EXP, we were not in alignment with our founding principle, which is being of service to you.
By the way, that right there got us over the hump.
Yes.
When Julie and I realized that by not sharing with you, once we absolutely believed that EXP Realty was the future, once we absolutely positively believed that EXP Realty's vision was in perfect alignment with what ours was, or ours was in perfect alignment with what theirs was with regards to agents, then it was a no-brainer. We had to make the decision. Now, we did go through some consternation. We were a little bit nervous that somehow we would lose some podcast listeners, or we'd lose some coaching clients. There was some coaching clients that got, they said, look, we don't care if you're with EXP Realty. We just want to have you guys as real estate coaches. And that was fine. And again, they'll say, just differing levels of apprehension to hear about a competing brokerage. Eventually, over time, they then would come around to us and say, hey, we're ready to talk about EXP Realty. You guys get the point? There was a little bit of that because Julie and I are not real estate practitioners. We're not buying and selling real estate other than our own. Well, we don't sell any of our real estate. We just buy it. We never sell it. Yeah. But the moral of the story is we were completely wrong. And the reason that we waited was not, it was out of alignment with what our purpose of being real estate coaches are. Our highest and best use on this planet, our true purpose on this planet, what makes Julie and I, frankly, feel the most fulfilled and happy is when we help you guys become more successful in your business and personal lives. And we have never seen, outside of our coaching program, though we're heavily biased in that direction, we've never seen anything that will be such an incredible wealth accelerator more than EXP Realty. You combine that with our coaching program, you've got something really, truly exceptional.
Which is why we decided to choose option number 2, to tell you about EXP and be in alignment with our top-level mission of being of service to all of you. We came to this one very obvious conclusion. If we are sincere about our proclamation that our highest and truest purpose is to be of service to others, if we truly believe that our mission in our professional lives is to help those who choose to follow us, then we must tell them about EXP Realty.
And that's what we did, and that's what we're doing now. And so what we'd like all of you to consider is EXP Realty, and we'd love for the opportunity to be your sponsors at EXP Realty. There's a lot of benefits of choosing Julie and I as a sponsor to at EXP Realty, and I'd love to share those with you. Text me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. Really, guys, at the end of the day, we're absolutely going to uncharted waters as far as the economy goes. We're optimistic about it because within those times of change, you can often create more opportunity than you can when, for example, everybody, it's in a seller's market. In a seller's market, there wasn't that much skill that was necessary, but we're entering into a market where there is a lot of skill necessary. There is a lot of, really, the other thing that's going to happen is a lot of you are going to be stuck in the mud for too long trying to make your own old business model work at your old brokerage. And that's going to be something that you will pay the price for faster than you can possibly imagine. So before you actually consciously maybe think that you need to change brokerages, you need to seriously look to see what the competition is for your current brokerage, or at the very least, you need to adapt to these changes that are coming your way. And I'm talking about your actual cost of doing business. I'm talking about buying leads. I'm talking about, for example, like EXP, you get KV Core for free. Well, you get part of your $85 a month fee. How many of you guys right now are spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars at KV Core? Well, that's included at EXP Realty. There's so many other benefits. We didn't even talk about health insurance. You have available health insurance at EXP. Does your brokerage offer health insurance? Probably not, right?
Well, and you don't just get KV Core. You also get training on how to monetize KV Core.
Exactly. So really the benefits of EXP are just off the charts incredible. And we would really love the opportunity to share with you why EXP Realty is the correct choice for you for switching brokerages or if you're new in real estate. So text me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. Now I want to have one closing thought for you, those of you who are listening. Obviously you're listening. If you are in any way offended by the fact that we were so drilled down on EXP Realty, frankly, we didn't have a choice. And the reason we didn't have a choice is because of what Julie just read to you. If we don't do everything we possibly can to sell to you, right, what's best for you, then we're hypocrites. If Julie and I do a podcast or write a book or do anything, a coaching call, and we're not leaving it all on the field, we are absolutely, positively, we're not worthy of being the people that we fought so hard to become. We're not worthy of all the, the tens of thousands that, tens of millions of you who have downloaded this podcast. We have to earn the right to be your trusted real estate coaches every single day. So if we don't impress upon you something that we are 100% confident it's going to be in the betterment of you and your family and your future, then that just means we're being complacent. That means we're being lazy. And if you've ever watched any of our Instagram videos of us working out, you know that's not true.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it got to the point now. I appreciate that some of you are feeling funny about this. Maybe you're because we're making you be introspective. Maybe you're feeling skeptical, just like we were. But don't wait too long. I think we waited too long. I think we got in our own way. But remember what we just went through, what we just walked you through with our decision-making tree. We didn't just say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea." You called many of our long time friends who also, ran companies. You did your research, you read the filings, we talked to people, we looked into it, and then we looked at each other and said, you know what? If we know about all this stuff that's so amazing for agents, having been agents ourselves and knowing what you go through, and we don't tell you, that would make us kind of full of crap.
Imagine if Julie or Tim and Julie, when they're in our early 20s, if we discovered this, that would just be incredible,
amazing.
right? I mean, EXP Realty wasn't around then, but it would be amazing.
We would have absolutely done that. Absolutely.
No doubt. I mean, there's because frankly, the wealth accelerator that EXP is, if all you do is sell real estate and you buy this and you get the stock at a discount and you hit Icon and you never do anything with revenue share, you're going to still be so much better off. Just the very fact that the EXP Realty's cap is so much less than what many of you are paying now. Many of you don't even know what you're paying because you'll tell yourself, well, I'm on a 90-10 split. Okay, well, you're including your 6% royalty fee and your annual fee and your this fee and the other fee. None of you are paying what you think. All of you guys are being you nickeled and dimed in ways you can't possibly imagine. I'm at a flat fee brokerage. Well, that's great. You're only paying $300 a transaction. Tell me about your health insurance. Tell me about the stock you're getting in the company. Tell me about the revenue share. Tell me about all the ancillary services that are, like we mentioned, KV Core, that you're not getting because you're getting what you're paying for at a flat fee brokerage. Open your mind. Are you currently on the trajectory? Are you going in the direction at the pace that you want to go for you to be where you want to be in 12 months? If not, at least take the time, do a little course correction, do a little homework about EXP Realty and decide if it's for you. If it's not, then good. Now you know. But if it is, Julie and I would certainly appreciate the honor of being your EXP Realty sponsors, and text me directly at 512-758-0206. In the meantime, we're getting back to regular scheduled podcasting tomorrow. You guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.